Too often business owners today are focusing on the little things in business. They're ordering supplies, dealing with employees, and dealing with customers, when what we should be focusing on is the most important thing, cash flow. I've grown over 10 businesses from the ground up. In this podcast, you'll learn the ins and outs of building a business and how to build transferable value. And most importantly, you'll learn how to maximize cash. They call me Cash Flow Mike, and this is the Clear Path to Cash. Hey, it's Cash Flow Mike, and welcome to the Clear Path to Cash podcast. And today, you won't believe it, it's episode 7, and I'm joined by retail superstar Paul Stevenson. And let me tell you, I didn't get permission to mention the company that he works for, but trust me, it's a brand that we all know, we all love, and we all trust. And today, I'm asking him to break down some of the key cash concepts that are similar between large corporations and small businesses. More importantly, I'll be looking for any hints, tips, and tricks that we can use. So, hey, Paul, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, Mike, thanks for allowing me to join your podcast today. I've been looking forward to it, and I think it's a great topic. And again, I'm Paul Stevenson, and I've been in my current industry since 1996, and that spans retail management in a single store location, managing volumes anywhere from 10 to 15 million, and now in a regional manager capacity with about 34 locations and a total portfolio of business of right at $55 million.
Unbelievable. Hey, and I got to tell you what, we're doing this around Thanksgiving time. It's got to be your favorite time of year, right?
It is. Lots of plans and looking forward to a lot of good food over the next week or so.
Right. Well, and more importantly, it's probably one of the busier times in your stores if people are getting those last minute Christmas gifts and trying to take them home for Christmas breaks or whatever they're trying to do.
It is. This is all about prepping, and in my business, this is a key time of prep for us as we head into the Christmas season, preparing for that customer experience and head right into the new year.
Right. Hey, and here's the reason why I wanted you to come on the show with me. Is that, I work with a lot of small business owners. Matter of fact, I wrote a blueprint, a strategy blueprint called the Clear Path to Cash. And a lot of the things I focus on have to do with cash controls, such as inventory or labor cost or, cash conversion cycles, those type of things. So that's what I wanted to dig into you today is be able to help take some of those concepts about inventory, about controlling your labor, so that those people running a small business, may be able to glean something from that, maybe a tip, maybe something that they can use and get in their business this year, or even for next year, right? When they're in the planning processes for next year. So I'm going to ask you, first of all, about inventory control. But before I get there, let me remind my listeners that, hey, you can go to cashflowmike.com for all of the show notes and any of the links that are mentioned in this episode. You can also go to youtube.com. And from there, you just search for Cashflow Mike and you can subscribe to my channel. And of course, there's a video of this, right, at the same time. And then also make sure that you hit that bell button to be notified when we have future episodes. And then lastly, if you want to go to any of your favorite listening platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Google, doesn't matter. You can subscribe to this podcast there. And please leave us a review. I mean, I'd like to know how I'm doing. I don't want to be doing this for nothing. So make sure if I'm off the path somehow, you can put me back on there. So let's get back to Paul. I mean, that's the reason why we're having this show today. So Paul, let's talk about inventory. Kind of tell me about, what it's like running inventory at your level. And maybe there's some things that you've seen at the store level, because it sounded like you were both at the multi-store management level, regional director or regional manager, and then you've also run individual stores. So tell us about how that translates from doing it to managing it.
That's correct, Mike. And, I think you bring up two really key areas of focus for, any retailer, any business owner. And, look, we work in a very dynamic business with a lot of constant change. And I don't think that that's specific to my industry. I think that you look around at any industry now, and there are a lot of outside pressures that will, cause you to really look at yourself as a business and really focus in on those key controls. And you mentioned two areas, inventory control and labor management, key focus areas. And for me, we work on a very large scale, bringing in a lot of goods, a lot of inventory. And my job as an operator, is one, to make sure I'm looking at that global picture of inventory and making it a profitable picture, if you will, for all of my stores. But on a store manager level, I really have to distill that down and, work with each individual store manager to look at that business like it's their own. And one of the things I tell every store manager, look, you work for a large retailer, but if you manage your business like you're spending your own dollar, and you're looking at every piece of inventory and asking yourself, if I use my own dollar to purchase that inventory and looked at how long it was here and how many months it's been sitting in my store, it would really probably change your perspective on how you're running your business.
Oh,
And I think that,
absolutely. And I'll tell you what, when you're talking about small business owners, they are spending their own dollars, right? I mean, it's coming right out of their pocket. So let me tell you, are there some metrics that they can look at? I mean, if you're at the store level, I mean, you've got probably some fast movers, some slow movers. I mean, how do you know when to clearance? How do you know when to move inventory off the shelves?
yeah, well, in our industry, we look at a total months on hand. Now we have reports that, kind of look at all of this information in aggregate, and it spits out, if you will, hey, look, this product has been here for this long and you need to mark it down. But on a whole, again, if you're looking at from a small business perspective, you know, after 90 days, you're bringing in a product to sell to the consumer. And if you're not moving that product at a quick pace, in that first 30, 60, 90 days, it's either something that really doesn't resonate with the customer, or it's something that maybe you just made a bad buy on. So you're going to have to take that markdown and really come up with your strategy in that 60 to 90-day period to bring that to the next level markdown so you can cleanse your inventory and bring in a new fresh product.
Okay, so tell me about a markdown strategy. What would be something typical that you might use if you had your own small business right now? What's something you might use for a markdown strategy?
Yeah, so what we do is we take the product and we make that determination, is this a product that we need to move to clearance? Have we either sold through a certain percentage of it, which is typically, if you sell 60 to 70% of the goods that you bring in, that's good, but you need to go ahead and dissolve the rest of that inventory. So we take that, bring it to the first stage, about 25% markdown. Most of these margins that you have are anywhere, 50 to 70% built in. So you're going to take that 25% hit, let it run for 2 weeks to 30 days, and then we just take it from 50, 75, and then all the way to 0 and cleanse it out of your inventory. So that really gives you about a 3 to 4 month a window there where you can still pick up some margin dollars and cleanse your inventory at the same time.
Okay, so even if you mark it all the way down to 0% margin, I mean, at least you're not losing money. Or are there times when you actually just try to lose money on it just to move it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are times you have to, that's just a part of doing business, right? You're going to make purchases. Look, we would all love every purchase to bring it to your store, bring it to your business and sell 100%. That's obviously not how it works. So, you're going to take chances, you're going to take risks and say, hey, do I want to get into this type of product? Or man, I think this can sell here. I think this would look good. And a lot of times that's how you run, that's how you create, that's how you grow your business. But the other part of that is there's going to be things that don't work. So by taking that out, yeah, you do want to pick up the margin dollars throughout that markdown period. But there's going to be times, and I call it a dog, right? You bring something in, and it's a total dog, and you have to mark it down to 0, and you are going to take a hit on that product.
Yeah, I tell you what, that's absolute gold what you've said right there, because most of the small business owners I've talked to or worked with or trained in the past don't have a clear markdown strategy, right? They just let it sit on the shelf forever. You've probably seen it. And I always say, how do you know when inventory is too old? Well, just blow on it, right? So,
No, that's right. You know what? You bring up a great topic. And if you go into any old hardware store, which I love, look, I started in a hardware store when I was in college. Best job I ever had for 3 or 4 years. But the facts of the matter is that a lot of hardware stores, as you saw Home Depot, as you saw Lowe's evolve into what they are now, the old independent hardware store, you would walk in and it would just be old product for a long time. It's just not something that you can do in your business. It's not healthy. You have to move through that product and cleanse your inventory.
sure. And there's probably some items that you might keep older than others, right? I mean, because I've been to those hardware stores and I almost expect them to have, we'll say some plumbing parts for a toilet that they don't make anymore, right? Or something like that.
Absolutely. I mean, anything that's seasonal, anything like, that you just mentioned, that's a product that's going to have a long life to it, that's a need. It might just be a slow seller. Or again, if it's a seasonal opportunity, yeah, you can hold that inventory. And even if you're holding it for, 7 or 8 months, you have to be cautious because how many dollars do you want to put into that product that you have to basically warehouse. And that's not what you want to become as a warehouser, right? That's what a lot of businesses fall victim to, is warehousing product versus selling it. And then you're in an over inventory situation in a non-profitable environment.
Oh, that's good. Hey, next thing I want to talk to you about is another cash drain on the business. Something that can really just suck a lot of money right out of the company, and that's labor dollars. But first, I want to remind everyone that they can go to cashflowmike.com for any of the show notes from today's episode, and also send me any questions that you might have, about today's podcast or about building cash flow in general. So, Paul, let's switch to labor, right? Because you have to know how to staff, right? And I'm sure there's some formula that you use on how many people to have at any given day, any given hour. How do you know? How do you know how many people to have on staff?
Well, great question. And it's something that I think all businesses struggle with. And, I'll tell you again, and using the word dynamic change, the dynamic change in all of our industries and the way in which we staff is key. It's vital to the success of the business. And it's something that you really have to leverage and balance out the right way based on what your needs are. Through our changing times, if you have periods of erosion or weeks that you need to plan for, you need to be very on top of your labor planning because it's another area that can get away from you quickly. I think what all small businesses need to do is, of course, build a history over the course of running your business. Really look at productivity reports, really drill down by the hour what you're spending and then what you're taking in. There's a lot of hours that are spent in businesses where there's just really too many people there based on what the needs of the business are. And if you really look at that from a historical perspective, again, from a productivity standpoint, it'll give you the ability to manage that, payroll piece more effectively.
Okay, so basically what you're trying to do is take like a revenue per hour formula, right? Which means you take your total revenue and divide it by the number of employees on, and there's probably a target number, right? We'll say maybe $100 an hour. I'm just throwing out an example. So if I'm under $100 an hour, I probably have too much staff. I'm overstaffed. If I'm over $100 an hour, I'm either okay or maybe even understaffed.
That's correct. And you've heard the terms, either selling cost or, productivity number. There's many different ways that you can look at it, but that's it. You want to see what your selling cost is per hour. Now, based on what the needs of your business are, that might make that number, fluctuate. If you have a piece of your business that is heavily staffed, if you're looking at cafes, or if you're looking at certain industries where you're going to have a significant amount of labor to do any type of loading or anything like that, it's going to make that number go up. But you can blend that number based on, again, what the needs are of your business. What if you have a sales floor environment, what does that look like per hour? How many cashiers do you need, this time of the day versus another? And that'll really help, drill down that selling cost.
Okay, so I imagine you've built some labor budgets. What happens if it gets out of whack? How long do I got to recover?
Well, not long, and you have to be quick and you have to be nimble whenever it, comes to labor. And you have to have somebody, if it's not you, you need to have somebody who's leading and managing that process because it can get away very fast. A schedule or a labor budget is not just a piece of paper. It's a fluid document and it can change based on the hour, right? I mean, you need to be able to react. And then a lot of times, oddly enough, in order to do that, it means hiring more people with more flexible hours depending on your business, right? Most of the businesses we talk about have different intervals of business that you need to cover. It might be a 4 to 6 hour window. And based on, the needs of the business and the available hours of that employee, again, you have to react. So if you know that historically, last year you were busy in the afternoon, but this year, for some reason, you're not, you have to react quickly and you have to be able to cut that labor force down to be able to pull in that selling cost.
Okay, great. Hey, last question. I'm going to put you on the spot. If your best friend came to you and says, hey, I'm starting a business, what piece of advice would you give him today?
Well, I think that the advice that I would give anybody is be prepared to take every small failure as a victory, because any business that I've either started or been a part of, you're going to have roadblocks, you're going to have bumps, and you have to plan for those. You have to make sure that whatever that is, you know, if it's a cushion financially, if it's different resources that you need, you really need to plan out for that, because every single business, the only way that you're going to be able to get to that success, to that goal, to that place that you want to be, is really going through the different bumps in the road, right? It's just part and parcel with building any business. And I think educating on yourself what those could be before you get into the business, and then, you know, what to expect as you ride that journey into your new business. And I think that that would be the thing that I would focus on and stress to any friend of mine.
There you go. Hey, great advice. I mean, because no path is exactly smooth. Hey, Paul, I want to thank you for joining me today, and everyone else, thanks for listening. If I want to remind everybody to go to cashflowmike.com for any of the show notes and any questions you might have regarding today's episode. Check out YouTube as well. Cashflow Mike is the channel. Subscribe right there. And don't forget, you can find us on iTunes and Spotify and Google Play. Follow me there and leave a review. Also, I want to tell you about, hey, it's Black Friday. Remember, I mean, if you're out there pushing your goods, this is a good time to get out in front of the customer and make sure that you're putting your best foot forward and collecting on a great opportunity and a great time to get in front of that customer with your product or service. So my name is Cashflow Mike, and you've been listening to The Clear Path to Cash. So thank you so much. And remember, don't be a dumb business owner.